Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AAS YouTube channel. And this is part of the Sky and Telescope series. This will be the Sky and Telescope Science Editor series. And I'm super happy to have Camille Carlisle with us today.
Hello.
Hey, Camille.
What's up?
Where are you at in a redwood, besides a redwood forest?
Besides redwoods. Maybe we should try that again. No, I'm in the Boston area.
Okay.
Working from home.
Yes. Yes. Are all the Sky and Telescope folks working from home these days?
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah. At some point, we'll transition back to the office as safety permits, but
who knows when that will be? Hopefully not, or hopefully soon.
Yeah.
So what do you do for Sky and Telescope?
I am the science editor, which means I commission, I edit, and I write the science features for the magazine. Those are the ones about recent developments in our understanding of the universe, as opposed to telescope care and observing. And I also write. Sometimes I write features. In my copious spare time, will occasionally write a blog for my Black Holes blog. And that's what I spend most of my time doing.
Cool.
I'll work on an info with our art director, a different way to convey information. We did that in our September issue. Let me see if I can find it. Please. Can you see it? No.
Not against that background. Oh, there we go. Crossing the edge of the solar system.
I can't really take much of any credit for this one because Monica Barbara, who's a solar physicist, actually came up with the idea for us, and she's amazing. And so she worked with an illustrator to put together this really cool infographic of what the Voyager spacecraft found when they crossed the heliopause. It was pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah, always good graphics there in Sky and Telescope. So that means what? You get out about 1 or 2 articles per issue?
Yes. So I'm handling usually 2 features an issue from my department. Occasionally I can give them off to somebody else, but no, usually there are 2 from the science department.
Okay. How did you get into
And it covers everything from... Sorry?
No,
I think I lost.
Yeah, we're bouncing a little bit, but it's doable. So how did you get into science writing?
There's a long melodramatic story, and then there's the short, pretty version.
I'll do both.
I'll give you somewhere in between. So I always wanted to be a novelist.
Okay.
And I decided I was going to be an astronomer to pay the bills while I was going to be a novelist, because that made sense. And then this led to a lot of existential crises in college. And at one point, I saw a poster from the MIT science writing program, and they had these tear-off postcards that you could take. And I looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, you can do that? You can write about science? This is me. And so I tore up the postcard and I taped it above my desk, and it hung there for like 2 years until it was time to apply for my master's. And that's where I went for my master's. It was great. Cool. And I also, before that, got to intern at Sky and Telescope and loved it. Loved every day of it. And after my master's, I worked as a fact checker. Mm-hmm. In DC at Science News, and then an opening came up at Sky and Telescope, and then I came back. And I have been here now for 9 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they haven't kicked me out yet.
No, I think you've earned some seniority there.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
That leads to a different type of existential.
Yeah. When you mean I'm the most senior in the room.
Changes. Yes. So what are some of your I mean, you don't have to spill the next issue or something, but what are some of your current projects that you're working on?
So at any given moment, I'm juggling about a half dozen features in various stages of development. And it's everything from I'm dealing with the page proofs for one that's here, wait.
She disappears into the forest.
I did. We do that. Page proofs of like checking them. I know you can't see it with the background, but making sure all the lines fit to the early stages of a draft and checking it for, does this make sense? Is it organized? Is it clear? Is it engaging? And so I'm constantly sending articles back and forth between writers. And it's everything from planetary science to cosmology to galaxies.
Mm-hmm.
If it's in the science of astronomy, I may well be covering it.
So how do you how are articles chosen? I mean, do you pick topics, or what is the process from start to finished article? How do you pick something? Who writes it? How does that whole process kind of work?
In terms of picking topics, it's really just my gut. Okay. It does. It's like, do I find this interesting? What I like to tell people is the two things required for being a science journalist are insatiable curiosity and a willingness to look stupid. And the willingness to look stupid comes in because you have to ask enough questions to make sure you actually understand the science and can explain it.
Definitely.
But the insatiable curiosity comes in more for commissioning articles, because it's, do I think this is interesting? Do I think our readers will think this is interesting? Does it have enough context that this is something people should know about right now in terms of what's happening in astronomy? And so it's a combination of going to conferences or virtual conferences right now. I have been hitting up a fair number of conferences and colloquia I would never have gotten to go to otherwise, which has been great. I've actually pulled in three articles that way.
Nice.
So this summer, and then it's going to real conferences, it's listening to the speakers, seeing who tells an interesting story, who's a good communicator. Is this a subject that is interesting enough for our readers that I think, this is really something that the general public should know about? And then, of course, there's just the newsy stuff of like the really obvious one of, phosphine on Venus. How can you not cover phosphine on Venus, And so that's a no-brainer. And so it's a combination of me looking for scientists who are good communicators and know the field. And that's about half my writers. The other half of my writers are professional science writers. And often those have come to me through pitching and whatnot. But occasionally I know them through other ways.
Okay. So when you say commission an article, so does that mean that a scientist that you've identified, then they write the first draft of the article? Is that how that works?
Yes. So it means I contact them and say, I'm interested in finding having someone write a 2,400 word article on this subject. Okay. I see it covering these general points about this field that you work in. Would you be interested in writing this for me? And if they are, then I provide samples, I provide a writer's guide. We have back and forth about the edits and go from there.
Okay. Are you open to solicitation of articles? So if somebody's got some topic they think they good, can they reach out to you?
We get pitches all the time.
What do you think about this article?
Yeah, we're constantly fielding pitches.
Okay.
And they come more from the professional science writers just because they're more used to doing the work that way.
Mm-hmm.
The key for a pitch coming from a professional scientist is it has to be general enough that it makes a good overview story. It's more like the concept of a review, even though it's much shorter.
Yeah.
that it can't just be about, oh, I did this one cool paper and I published it, and now I want to write a popular version. No, we didn't. No, that's not a feature. And so, like, a good example was about a year ago, we did a feature on Martian weather. What do we know about Martian weather?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nice size of topic that you can bring in a lot of different results, weave them together into a story without it being, this is everything we know about Mars.
Ooh, that'd be
We're not going there.
right. Very cool. So that's actually a pretty good tip for people who are thinking of maybe putting in a Sky and Telescope article. And of course, you probably got a Rolodex a mile long.
I do. I do. I keep a record of everyone I interview for when I write, and also I know, of course, who I commissioned as well.
Cool. So you say commission. Do people get paid to write those?
Yeah. Science writing is a paid gig.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not like the journals where they have to pay.
Yeah, I understand all too well. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I always have to clarify this when I ask a professional scientist to write for me. Is like, we pay you. It's not much.
Right. Okay, sure. You won't retire on this article, but
right, yeah.
Very interesting. Cool. So is there anyone else at Sky and Telescope? You mentioned departments. So are there other people who cover other aspects of the science or do more newsy sort of operations or
right. So Sky and Telescope, many people watching this will know, we cover everything related to the science and hobby of astronomy. Mm-hmm. And so we have a science department, that's me for the features. We have observing department. We have the equipment and imaging are sort of put together, and have sort of a miscellaneous that usually ends up being history articles. And we also have the news section. My colleague Monica is the news editor, and she's overseeing the news coverage on the website primarily, which also makes it into the magazine in a condensed form. And between us, we try to give a picture of everything that's going on in astronomy.
You also cover those historical articles?
I don't handle them, but yes, we regularly have the history of astronomy and culture, interesting stuff like that.
Right. People who are watching this, the next one I'll actually be doing for Sky and Telescope sort of falls into that category of Comet Biela. So somebody else covers those types of articles?
Yes, it depends on what it is, but it's usually one of my colleagues handling those. I'm pretty solely for the science department and news when I can swing it. Cool.
Very cool. So is there anything else you would like to share with Sky and Telescope readers and AAS members on the S&T editorial process or articles or anything at all?
Well, I think the most important thing to understand about how Sky and Telescope is put together is that it's very collaborative. That is, it's not just, it's collaborative, one, in me with my authors, that I care a lot about my authors and I want to make sure that they put their best foot forward, that we're also making sure that it's something the readers will enjoy, that it's accurate. We fact check a lot. I fact check every feature. A good rule of thumb is about 4 pages in the magazine is 1 day of fact checking.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's interesting for authors, particularly if they're professional scientists. They've never been fact checked before. It can be, it's a good experience. It's like a deep tissue massage. It's a little uncomfortable in the moment, but you feel great afterwards.
So let me go down there. So let me go down there. So when you say fact checking, what does that mean? So for example, we're going, let's say we pick up the Martian weather article, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that are, science at the leading edge is not necessarily completely fact yet.
Well,
right? There's new models, there's new observations, there's interpretations of that, and they may reach some community consensus, but that doesn't necessarily make it a fact.
Well, it makes it a fact in the sense that we are reporting what they say. Our job is to say scientists currently think this.
Okay.
And so we check to make sure you've correctly identified who said it, the data they used, how they interpreted it, how these things are going together. So you're essentially checking every phrase, every number, every claim. I've got printouts, and basically it's all like little red lines and check as I go through and do it.
Okay.
So that's what we're checking.
Got it. Yeah.
And then that's just the text side. And then you've also got the diagrams, right? Because the magazine is not just text. It's not just you hand me the text, I put it on a page and it goes. And so sometimes authors will help us with that. Sometimes as the editor, I'm conceptualizing diagrams. Sometimes I sketch them and hand them to the illustrator and say, recreate this in a pretty way.
Right.
And it's things like I'll create a flow chart of this is how planetary systems form. And I actually sketch it. I literally sketch it. And then it becomes
something beautiful.
Yeah, something much better looking than that. I don't think I have that issue yet, actually. Oh, that was silly. But it'll eventually look much better than that on the page.
No, Sky Telescope's got great images, great illustration.
Yeah. And our director's superb. And so then we take the diagrams, we take the text, and we hand it to the art director and say, work your magic. And then she figures out, how does this go on the page? How does everything need to flow together? What are the color schemes? She creates the infographics, any way that she can find to present the information in an interesting way, and then hands it back to us. And it's like, ooh, okay, now now we have page proofs.
Does let me go back to that publishing. Does Sky Telescope do its own publishing, or do you contract out to a publisher? I mean, who actually does the typesetting and the printing?
We upload the files and it's printed by a printer.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. I'm good for now. You want to ask me a question, or?
Yeah, what do you do for AAS?
Well, many people might wonder that. I'm a provocateur.
No comment.
No, so what I do is in some sense similar to what you do. I'm a science editor for the AAS journal, so the APJ, the AJ, etc. I'm also a lead editor, so that means I help with the flow of the manuscripts. And so then the basic job there is to run the peer review process and adjudicate that peer review process. And I'll put links in the video below this one because we do have videos on how that process works and some of the things you can do to your advantage during the peer review process. So that's the main thing I do for the journals, is be a science editor. I do probably, these days, I probably do about 400 or so articles per year, peer review process. And then for the past year and a half here, I've been doing content for the AAS YouTube channel. In about the last 6 months, bringing out the human side of the game by talking to people and their articles and whatever. So that's a little bit what I do. And I'm having fun. Are you having fun still?
Yeah.
Good. Good.
You mean in this interview, or you mean in general?
In general, with Sky Telescope, but you can apply it to this interview as well.
Never a dull moment.
In fact, it might be quite different. I'm having fun in general. You, on the other hand,
it's nose to the grindstone. It's a fun grindstone, but journalism our life is deadlines. It's part of life.
Cool. And you had a blog that you briefly mentioned. I think it was Black Hole, something that along those lines. So we'll put a link to that down in the video, and you can
thank you.
a little bit more of Camille's blog. It's very cool. That'll do, everyone.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Yeah.